In August 2000, Nicholas Markowitz was kidnapped over a $1,200 drug debt owed by his half-brother to Jesse James Hollywood. On August 6th, Hollywood and his associates abducted Nicholas to use him as leverage, taking him to Santa Barbara where he was held for nearly 3 days. During that time, he was not restrained and even partied with his captors, who initially treated the situation as a joke. After learning the severe legal repercussions of kidnapping a minor, Hollywood ordered Ryan Hoyt to kill Nicholas to prevent him from becoming a witness. In the early morning of August 9th, Nicholas was murdered in the Santa Ynez Mountains, and his body was discovered 3 days later by hikers, leading to swift arrests. Several years after the tragic death of Nicholas Markowitz, Alpha Dog was released to theaters, a remarkably accurate cult classic that displays the days that led up to Nicholas's death. Alpha Dog is a fast-paced, heartwarming, and gut-wrenching movie that perfectly encapsulates what life was like for suburban California teens in 2000. Let's get into it. We start off with Sonny Truelove, played by Bruce Willis, being interviewed about the whereabouts of his son Johnny Truelove, who was being charged with the murder of Zach Mazursky. He says he doesn't know. Roughly 15 minutes into the movie, the conflict begins where drug dealer Johnny Truelove, played by J-Boy himself, Emil Hirsch, tries to collect a $1,200 debt from the mentally unstable Jake Mazursky, performed to perfection by Ben Foster. As the two exchange words, Johnny attempts to strangle Jake with a belt. He fails and proceeds to get his ass handed to him. After that little kerfuffle by the pool, we are greeted with a heartwarming scene of Jake, his girlfriend played by Heather Walquist, known for her role as Sarah Tuffington in The Notebook, and his brother Zach Mazursky, with an incredible performance from a young Anton Yelchin. As the night comes to an end, Jake and his girlfriend safely deliver the young Nick home. The next day, Johnny Truelove gets Jake fired by calling his boss and telling him that Jake is on drugs. Jake takes this surprisingly well.
I will take you down to hell with me!
Deciding to blow off some steam, Jake heads over to Johnny Truelove's house with two upstanding citizens. They break in, and Jake proceeds to leave his mark by taking a on the carpet. The next morning, infuriated and embarrassed, Johnny is with his crew consisting of Frankie Nuts Ballenbacher, played by Justin Timberlake, the muscle Tico TKO Martinez, played by boxer Fernando Vargas,
Target practice! We ain't going 12 rounds!
and Elvis Schmidt, played by Sean Hatosy. He tells the crew that he wasn't home last night during the break-in, but he's pretty sure it's that crazy mofo Jake. The crew go around San Gabriel Valley looking for Jake. When they can't locate him, they spot his 15-year-old half-brother, Zach, walking down the street and impulsively kidnap him as leverage. As the crew figures out what to do next with Zach, Frankie Nuts says that they could go to Chucky Moda's house. Chucky is a real chill guy, but not that chill. And him and his roommate, Gay Lumpy Yeager, flip out as Zach is being duct-taped in the bathroom. Back in San Gabriel Valley, Jake heads over to his pop's house and catches hands and wind that his brother is missing due to the debt he owes to Johnny Truelove. Jake then sets out to find his brother and begins to politely ask people at a party if they have seen Johnny Truelove. Over in Palm Springs, Frankie and Zach are developing a friendship, as Zach doesn't see the situation as hostile by any means, and is treating it more of a getaway from his parents. Frankie embraces Zach's demeanor and introduces him to his friend group. Frankie informs his good friend Keith Stratton, played by a young Chris Marquette, that Zach is captive and not to tell anyone. Keith immediately informs the girls, who are fascinated by the situation. Julie Buckley, in particular, played by Amanda Seyfried, piques a special interest in Zach as he reciprocates the same feelings.
Oh, it's hot.
Dude, so you're like Ransom or something.
Yeah. Stolen boy.
Johnny Truelove shows up to Frankie's house and asks him how he would feel about killing Zach for $2,500. To which Frankie responds, "The fuh? No," and persuades Johnny to just let the kid go. Later that night, Frankie hosts a party at his place. Johnny speaks with Zach and apologizes for this whole mess. Truelove confirms that he will release Zach and that they can put this all behind them and be friends. Zach agrees. The next day, Johnny calls Jake in an attempt to smooth things over. Jake declines the offer.
Get on your sucking knees and pray!
True Love then calls his lawyer, who informs him he's Zach, Frankie, and friends spend his last night in Palm Springs with a big party as they await Zach to be driven back home. They hug, rascal around a bit, and Zach even shows everybody his sweet Taekwondo moves. Living his best life later that night, Zach becomes a man with Julie and her friend.
Wipe that smile off your face. You're a dead giveaway.
As all seems right in Palm Springs, back in SGV, bruised ego Johnny orders Elvis Schmidt to go and kill Zach. As Elvis arrives, he informs Frankie about the orders. Frankie says no. Elvis says yeah. Meanwhile, little Johnny True Love is getting smacked around by his father, Sonny True Love, who found out about the kidnapping. He forced him to call off the hit, but it was too late. On what Zach thinks is the car ride home, he begins to tell Frankie and the boys how much he appreciates them and how he's going to change his life for the better. They reach Lizard's mouth. Keith, filled with remorse and guilt, hugs Zach and heads back to the car. At that moment, Zach realized his impending doom. A back and forth ensues. Zach pleads with Frankie to not do this, not kill him. Frankie ensures that they are not going to kill him, as Frankie is in denial that this will even be carried out. This continues until Elvis, Frankie, and Zach are in front of a shallow grave. Frankie duct tapes Zach, still telling him that he is going to be all right. Elvis then swiftly hits Zach in the head with a shovel and ends his life. Zach's mother, Olivia Mazursky, played by Sharon Stone, is now being interviewed in a powerful, gut-wrenching performance that depicts the raw emotions real-life mother Susan Markowitz has had to feel since the untimely death of her son, Nicholas.
If that God's got a purpose for me, you better get the down here and tell me what it is.
The film concludes with scenes that show everybody involved in the young Zach's murder and abduction rounded up and arrested for their involvement in this atrocious crime. Johnny True Love fled the FBI for nearly 5 years before he was arrested in Paraguay. Despite mixed reviews, Alpha Dog stands out for its strong young cast, with Justin Timberlake delivering a surprisingly layered debut, Anton Yelchin earning praise for his heartbreaking performance, and Ben Foster bringing intense, unsettling energy to the film. The connection to a true story makes its ending especially disturbing and hard to watch for many viewers, including myself, as Zach's death rattled a young Rio to his core, matching the same sadness I felt when I was in the 4th grade and watched G-Baby die for the first time. After the 2000 murder of Nicholas Markowitz, Jesse James Hollywood fled the U.S., eventually reaching Brazil. In 2001, Ryan Hoyt was convicted and sentenced to death, later reduced to life without parole. Hollywood remained on the FBI 10 Most Wanted list until his capture in Brazil in 2005. He was later extradited, convicted in 2009, and is now serving life without parole. Following the murder of Nicholas Markowitz, his mother Susan Markowitz attempted suicide 3 times, deeply traumatized by the loss. His father, Jeff Markowitz, publicly criticized the film Alpha Dog for what he felt was the glamorization of their son's murder. Despite their concerns, both attended the premiere, where Susan said she was moved by Anton Yelchin's performance and later embraced Sharon Stone for her role in the film. The film Alpha Dog accurately depicts the kidnapping, which stemmed from a $1,200 drug debt owed by Ben Markowitz to Jesse James Hollywood, as well as the nature of Nick's captivity, where he was largely unrestrained and spent time socializing with his captors. It also closely mirrors the real events of the murder at Lizard's Mouth, including the use of a semi-automatic weapon and the shallow grave burial. Meanwhile, a few elements were dramatized for the film, including entirely fictional scenes such as the party fight scene, which never actually occurred. Additionally, the portrayal of Jesse James Hollywood's capture in Paraguay is inaccurate, as he was captured in Brazil. Character dialogue and motivations were exaggerated, as well as to heighten the story's emotional impact. Alpha Dog was a minor financial success, grossing $32.1 million worldwide against a modest production budget of $9.5 million. This was one of my favorite movies growing up. It really tore me apart when I watched it the first time. I was only 10 years old, probably shouldn't have been watching it at that point. But if you'd like to watch it, which I strongly advise you do, it unfortunately isn't on any streaming sites, but you can rent it on YouTube, Apple, or you can always pirate it, but we don't advise that. Hope you guys enjoyed and have a great day.